Hey everyone, Dr. Tina Sagosho here, and I'm excited to have my very first Instagram live uh, with every one of you out there to join me in this month of May, where we are concentrating on nurturing the nurturer. And as many of you know, and who know me personally, I am a menopause specialist here in Merced. I am an OBGYN by profession and by my specialty. And I'm looking forward to sharing conversations with other women who are in the midlife women's health and wellness space. And this month, is Mother's Day month, and we want to certainly think about all the women who are caregivers and nurturers, and how do we take care of them. And so today I'm going to start off my very first interview with a registered dietitian by the name of Elizabeth Ward, and she and her partner Hillary Wright make up the Menopause Diet Plan. And I'm going to invite Liz, who's going to join us this afternoon, and have her join us and have a conversation about nutrition. So give me a second. I'm going to invite her, and let's see how this goes. I did
We
it.
did it. You did it. Congratulations.
I have to say I was practicing this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to practice. It's not like you're born knowing how to use
I
Instagram
know.
Live,
I
right?
know. This is a pleasure for me. And if I believe it's Elizabeth Ward, but you go by Liz,
I
is
go
that
by
okay?
Liz.
Oh,
Yep. Yep.
it's a pleasure to meet you, and I thank you for your time. I know you're on the East Coast, and so there is a little 3 hour difference between us. So I appreciate your time. And it is a pleasure to meet you. I am a physician out here in Merced, California.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an OBGYN by specialty. And I've spent the last 5 years just getting back to the books and getting back to the basics to relearn how to take care of midlife aged women.
Mm-hmm.
May comes around, we think about mothers, but I really wanted to spend the time talking about all of us who nurture. And so this is about nurturing the nurturers. And I know nutrition comes into that conversation, quite strongly. And I would love to hear all of your insights about nutrition, but please share, with us a few words about yourself and how you got to be a registered dietitian.
Um, well, I am a registered dietitian, and I've written several books about women's nutrition, from pregnancy all the way. I always say it's like from the cradle to the grave now, because I've, written about small children, their nutrition, infants, and then
Oh,
all the way past, well past menopause. So, how did I become a dietitian? I was an athlete in college,
okay.
in high school. My dad was always very interested in nutrition way before anybody else was. So that kind of got me into it. And then when I saw, the power of it to manage chronic diseases, to help people live longer, I got very, very interested in it in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how long have you been working as a registered dietitian?
Over 30 years,
Oh, wow.
over 30 years, yeah, in different capacities, in medical practices and hospitals, on my own. And mainly what I do now is nutrition communication. So I write books, I write articles, you know, um,
You've done
so really doing more of
uh,
that now.
almost
Um,
circle.
yeah,
That's 30-year
full
career.
circle, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Well,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, how did you and Hillary, or how do you two know each other,
Oh,
and how did you come together to produce that and create the Menopause Diet
this
Plan?
This is a good story. This is even better than my own personal story. Hillary and I met in organic lab
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember organic lab, not a lot. Yeah, we try to forget it. But yeah, we met there and that was it. I mean, we have been best friends ever since.
Oh,
We live near each other. We each had 3 kids. We were doing different things during our career and raising our families. Um, not quite the same things from a nutrition standpoint.
right.
Hillary's on oncology dietitian
Oh,
at Dana-Farber, and she's also she works for Boston IVF. She's a fertility
wow.
specialist. So we both have a very strong women's health background.
Great.
So we've been trying to work together forever, and it never worked out. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we started asking each other questions like about menopause.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do we do about this? And what do we do about that? And what do you think about this? And lots of diet and exercise questions. And we found that there wasn't really anything out there.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, this is it. We're
Yeah.
going to write the book together because we're the same age. We're going through menopause at the same time.
Yes.
And so we did. So we did the research, and we came up with the book and the Menopause Diet Plan.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we think it's good, and it really explains like what happens to your body during the perimenopause transition, and how diet and lifestyle can help offset
Absolutely.
those changes. Yeah, you're not going to cure anything. You're not going backwards. You're not getting any younger. You're not going to stop menopause in its tracks.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's not the horrible, terrible doom and gloom sometimes that you hear about. But I think having the facts is really important.
I couldn't agree with you more. That is definitely something I try to emphasize to my patient base, is understanding the physiology and the
Yeah,
biology of our bodies, especially as we enter this realm. And it's a lengthy time, right? Like we're going to be in this time frame 30 to 40 years if we're lucky. But as you know, it's the quality of those years, not the quantity. And then understanding like how we really make those years count. And,
yes.
for as long as time, we know the power of food, of nutrition, and how do we dial it all in. And so I'm really excited to hear more about how you got into the nutritional aspect for perimenopause and menopause women. I know you mentioned you and Hillary going through it yourselves, but is it something that you felt was needed in terms of the information out there, or was it just trying to dispel some of the misinformation? Because it can be all of it, I'm sure.
Yes to both of
Yeah,
those questions. When we started on this, journey together, there wasn't a lot of information, and there wasn't a lot of misinformation either.
yeah,
So there weren't a lot of people out there trying to sell you supplements, that's going to cure your menopause symptoms, offering you ways to magically melt your belly fat,
right,
reversing the aging process. And so there wasn't a lot of information about menopause, which really was,
yeah,
awful for women. And there wasn't a lot of what we call, Hillary and I call the grifters. The grifters weren't out there
right,
yet in full force
yes.
on social
Oh
media.
boy,
So yeah, I know. So we are really, really fact based. We are science nerds, and that's helpful because what we can do is look at the science
correct,
and translate it
correct,
into everyday stuff. And all of our patient experience really helped us to be pragmatic about what we were
right,
asking people to
right,
do, or suggesting that they do, or just giving them the information and say, okay, that's up to you. You can do. Some people like to be told what to do. Some people want to make their own decisions. So we just kind of laid it out
yeah,
there, made sure everything that we said was referenced. There are pages and pages of
Yeah,
references in the book, was referenced and was good science.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You're absolutely, right about all of the of breaking through all of the noise. And I think as we've gone through the last couple decades with social media being such a powerful tool,
Yeah.
even as a physician and having patients come in and you're like, well, I read on Google or I read here, I researched, and all of it's great because it has all the social media has all of those advantages.
Right.
I'm sure we know that how it's frustrating when there's so much other bogus stuff out
Yeah.
there. And how do you simplify it for women in midlife? I mean, how do you direct women to kind of get through the noise?
There's a couple of tips I think that you can use that are red flags. I mean, I hate to say it, but anybody who's selling a supplement is definitely raises the
Yeah.
red flag for me, because why is your supplement so much better than whatever else is on the market? Um, and then, if someone is selling a supplement and you're interested in that, then your next question should be, can you show me the science published in peer-reviewed, credible
Yes.
medical journals? Of course, not everybody knows what's credible and what's not. And as you and I know, there's a lot of junk journals out there that will publish anything. But, the big ones, the New England Journal of Medicine, things like
Yeah.
that, the really credible ones, not the obscure ones. Show me that science. And I'll say it myself. I'll say to people, can I see those studies? Because I'm interested in what you're talking about. And they never can seem to produce the research. Um, I think another red flag is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably
Correct.
is. And we're all about the boring basics. We are about the science and sticking to the boring basics. There is no magic cure for belly fat. Um, you aren't going to magically melt I shouldn't say melt when I talk about hot
Yeah.
flashes, but you're not magically going to cure your hot flashes with a supplement that someone said worked for them. So I think anything that sounds kind of magical or fantastical is probably something to really question the science. And I think when you see something online, you should say,
Yeah.
where is this evidence
Yeah.
published? Yeah, yeah. And if they don't get back to you,
Yeah.
there's probably nothing
Yeah.
to see here.
Yeah, and I also to that point, I think that, there's a little bit of the fear-based and preying on the desperation of our
Oh,
women, right?
absolutely. I mean, without
Yeah,
question, there's a lot of preying on women's
yeah.
vulnerability. And I understand it. I get it, because if you're all of a sudden you're coming into this phase of life and you've had no preparation, no one gives you a manual, so you have to
Nope.
go out and look for what is the best book I should buy, what is the best diet I should follow, and you have no idea. So how are you supposed to judge? And I always say stick with the doctors, stick with the NPs, stick with the registered dietitians. But even that is becoming a little bit tough
Yeah.
these days, because some of them have gone, as I like to say, to the dark side.
Yes. Yes, it's a lot to tease through and a lot to get through. And, when we're constantly bombarded by all the advertisements, by all the videos and reels, and, it is really difficult to maintain some semblance of clarity.
Right.
Um, that just goes to, for those of us, and I assume for you as well, is just educating, educating, educating. And, I pride myself in taking a lot of time with my own patients to just educate. They will make their own decisions on their own. But we have to just give them, all the good, hard evidence, sound evidence, that as much as we can.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you find has been kind of this that has stood the test of time in terms of nutrition? You know, you've been doing this for 30 years. You've been in probably many, many different facets. Now you're focusing on midlife aged women, menopause, perimenopausal women. What do you think has stood out, you know, the test of time?
I would say a diet that's low in saturated fat, one that has, plenty of fiber because nobody eats enough fiber. Only
Correct.
5% of the population gets enough fiber every day. And one that's low in, relatively low in sodium. I don't mean like, so you're like dying because you need some salt. I don't mean that
Right.
low, but relatively low in sodium and added sugars. I mean, you cannot, and is full of plant foods. You
Yeah.
really cannot argue with that. And those are really ideas that have been around since I've been a dietitian.
Correct.
Now, one of the not a fad, but I think the ideas that I've seen come and go is the notion of a low fat
Oh,
diet,
yeah.
a very like, unless you have some sort of medical issue where you do need to really watch your fat. I think for the general population, as long as the fat is healthy fats, from nuts and seeds and avocados and canola oil and olive oil, you can't go crazy on fat because it has nearly twice as many calories as protein or carbohydrate. But you don't have to go super low fat, because if you go super low fat, then
Right.
that means you're really probably not balancing all the other nutrients. So
Oh, God.
those are really, and those, like as I said, those are the boring basics that work
Correct.
to promote a healthy body.
Correct. You know, I remember in the 80s, you know, the low fat, you
Ugh,
know, the low
yeah.
fat.
Ugh, I
But
know.
my gosh, we did not realize how much sugar we were putting in place of all of that.
Right.
And, you know, I think back to those years, and it's just such a shame that we got it wrong back
Yeah.
then.
The thing about, and as you know, in medicine, it is the same way. Nutrition is not revolutionary,
Yeah,
it's evolutionary.
correct.
And, we continue to evolve. The problem is that, for the public, they're like trying to live their lives, do everything that they need to do. And they don't do this all day long like
Correct.
I do and like you do. And they're trying to figure out, like, well, what can I eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner now? What's a good snack? You told me snack wells were okay, and now you're saying to eat
Yeah,
peanuts. So I can understand the confusion, but I think if people would understand that we continue to
correct.
learn, and we do change some of the recommendations, but it's really like tweaking
Yeah,
rather than a major overhaul. I would say the fat thing, that's a major overhaul, but we're over it now. Okay, we're on track.
yeah. Think that, you know, I try to really focus on sugar myself. I really try to minimize any sugar based foods. I've tried to, impart that with my two children. That has never been easy, but I do find that in our Western diet and our American diet that we are just riddled with heavy sugar based foods.
Mhm.
You know, you can't drive down the road without seeing the Starbucks, the Dutch Bros, all these places that are just, they were just like churning out all of these sugar-based foods. What are your thoughts on if we could do anything to improve what's given to us in industry? Where would you start?
um I would, I think I would start by, and I'm not saying that you're blaming processed foods, but I mean, I think the blame does fall on processed foods, um, but it has to also do with the choices that we
Sure.
make. I mean, that's what we like about this country, right? There's so many different choices.
Correct.
We can have whatever we want. And then that choice is actually, can actually hurt us. So when people say, I have a hard time staying away from cookies or candy or whatever, and I am a sugar freak, I love sugar. I get it. And I have some chocolate every day because I feel like you cannot live your life without eating food for pleasure, purely for pleasure, right?
Yeah.
There's no vitamins or minerals I am seeking from my chocolate or a health benefit. I don't care. It's delicious. And so what I'm getting at is that if you're satisfied, if you are eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner because you've taken some time to plan those meals and think about them and how much protein and fiber and healthy fat you need in each meal and planning, you are not going to pull off the road to get a donut and
Yeah.
a coffee drink with 600 calories in it because you're satisfied.
Correct.
And that's how I've actually reduced my own
Yeah.
sugar intake, my own candy intake, by being satisfied. And I think the satisfaction is what's missing from
Interesting.
our diet.
Yes.
And what Hillary and I did a post a few weeks, maybe a few months ago, where we said, if you're trying to control your weight, which so many women in this age group, in our age group over 50, are trying to do, then when you're trying to design a way of eating, think of the food that you can absolutely cannot live without. And for Hillary, it was cheese, and for me, it was
Oh,
chocolate.
wow.
And yeah, and we each probably eat a little bit of that every single day. Because if you start off with what is your non-negotiable, what can't
Yeah.
you live with? And then you build around that
Yeah.
and you figure out your
Yeah.
calories. It's not a perfect science. And then you stay satisfied by eating enough protein and eating enough fiber and fruits and vegetables and everything else you're
Right.
supposed to eat. I don't think those foods are going to tempt you as much. Don't you find that when you're really hungry or vulnerable or tired or stressed or all of them, then those foods are like calling your name?
Yeah.
But when things are a little bit more planned out
Yeah.
and you feel a little bit more satisfied, it's much
Oh, correct.
easier to reject them, you
Correct.
know?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
I've in the process of reducing my own sugar intake over the last few years, I love dark chocolate. I really got accustomed to eating more dark chocolate. And even when I eat milk chocolate for whatever reason, I really don't enjoy it. And so
right.
my palate has changed over the years.
Yeah,
Do think that I'm very satisfied. Well, I should say I used to think I had to have a dessert after after dinner. And now if I'm content with what I eat for dinner and I'm full, I don't really seek out that sweet treat. So I couldn't agree with you more that once you're
yeah.
satisfied, it doesn't really, I think we can stop, we're able to stop there and then really just enjoy that moment of being pleasurably full.
Yeah. And that takes work
Yeah.
if, for the last 20 or 30 years, you have been doing the exact opposite and like automatically eating
Correct.
after dinner to reduce your stress, let's say.
Correct.
You're not hungry, you don't really want that, but you have that few moments, the 20 minutes or whatever, how long it is
Yeah.
that you're eating and you feel good then. So you're getting that dopamine hit in your
Yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
right? The sugar, the fat, the whatever. And you equate it with the food. And then, you go to bed, you don't sleep well because you probably have a full stomach.
Right.
You get up in the morning, you're not hungry
Yes.
because you ate so much until you went to
Yeah.
bed. And then the whole cycle starts over
All
again.
over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it takes time to like cut back at night,
Yes.
push the calories up during the day, get enough protein and fiber in fruits and vegetables all throughout the day. And I can guarantee it will be easier not to eat
Correct.
at night, which is really when this is happening.
Correct. And
Yeah.
try to encourage, people or my patients and people who I counsel and coach is that, we've had a longer time developing bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
And, we get to a certain point in midlife and we kind of have to really retrain our thinking. We have to retrain a lot of things.
Hmm.
And it's, a little bit of time to get our bodies to acclimate. And so when I have patients who I'm not, it's not fast enough. And I'm like, you got to give yourself and your body time to really make those adjustments, especially if you're consistent, if someone's consistent and very thoughtful about those food choices. over time it will happen, and I know for myself it worked. So I don't know what your experience is in that, but it's hard to convince people, just wait, time will, will work in your favor.
You know, yeah, I've had a lot of experience with that. And even personally, I have. When I was in my 20s, I was about, I don't know, 10 pounds heavier than I wanted to be. And I just said to myself, uh, I'm just going to take it slow. And I actually have the vision in my head. I remember thinking of a road, like a road that dips and turns and you can't see,
Mhm.
the end of it, because that's the journey. That's the way life goes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're on the road and then you dip down. You
Yeah.
think, yeah, you ate a little bit more than you wanted to. You went on vacation. That doesn't mean all of your
Yeah.
efforts are useless. They have not gone to
Yeah.
waste. So it's really like what you do at every single meal,
Yeah.
You can think of it, if it's too much and it's too overwhelming to think about, oh, this goal, I want to lose 30 pounds, 40 pounds. Think of it as, one day at a time,
Correct.
one day part at a time,
Oh,
one day part.
yeah.
What am I going to do from, 9 to 12? And what am I going to eat in there? Because it's daunting. And it's daunting to retrain your brain to think of this as a longer journey with twists and turns.
Yes.
Um, but that is what it
Yeah.
is. And like you said earlier, we could live, 30 or 40 more years after menopause. So we do need to
Correct.
retrain our brains now, because, and for some women, weight wasn't really an
Yes.
issue until now.
Correct.
And so, but as we get older, our metabolism is slowing down
Absolutely.
and we are becoming less
Yes.
active. I mean, I remember I have three kids. I would run around and do this and do that. And all that burns calories. And now you may be sitting more,
Correct.
a whole bunch of things, and that's really not menopause that's causing it. It's really that aging process and slowing
Correct.
down in activity.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, a whole new balance needs to
Correct.
be achieved, and it cannot be achieved overnight.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It is, I mean, I even think about my own journey in the last, especially in the last 5 years of my menopausal transition. And I was one of those fortunate ones that was, very petite growing up. I was a classically trained ballet dancer,
Mhm.
so I always had this somewhat warped idea of what the body, was supposed to be like. But I was always very fortunate to be leaner and be more
Mhm.
petite. Oh my gosh, Liz, perimenopause hit me, and I woke up and I didn't know who that person was in the mirror.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really, especially for me, having kind of relearned a lot about the hormone changes and perimenopause and menopause, and really giving myself a lot more grace to
Mhm.
understand, you know, to take a step back, understand how the body is changing, and then finding what works for me. And also just maybe accepting a new norm too. I think there's something to be said about encouraging women to, yes, we want to make all of those lifestyle choices, changes, modifications, improvements, but there's a little grace we have to give ourselves.
Yeah. And in some women's cases, there's a lot of grace they need to give themselves
Oh,
because
yeah.
they are so hard on themselves and so fixated, some people are, on having their 25-year-old body
Yeah.
back, and that's not going to work
No.
because just because of changes in collagen, right? Changes in your skin is more lax, your muscles are not as taut as
Right.
they used to be, so your shape kind of changes just based on that, whether you gain weight or not. I mean, things start to go south.
Yeah.
The gravity is working, and and Hillary has a much better attitude about this than I do. So that's why she's a perfect life partner, call her my life partner. For me, we both have husbands, but we are life
Yeah,
partners because she gets me out of my own head about that. I mean, I didn't like that. I don't like the idea of getting older. I have to admit it. I
yeah,
don't love it, but I'm working with it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to worry about it. She's much more accepting than I am, but it's happening to all of us. And how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to obsess about, a few extra rolls around our middle that we've really
yeah,
tried to get rid of? We've done everything and we can't do it. It's
correct.
not jeopardizing our health, but it is jeopardizing our mental health. I
Absolutely.
mean, is that what we're really going to spend the day doing every single day? I choose not to do
Correct.
that. So yeah, so you're right.
Yeah,
Lots of acceptance is required for this stage of life.
yeah. There's a question that just came up on the on the on the on the comment section, and it's from a page, and she asks us, why do we see so many women in LA who do look like 25-year-olds? And I do think that in your profession, our professions are different, but they're the same, right? Like
Mhm.
we end up counseling women, educating women on everything because it's always a holistic approach.
Right.
But question like Paige's comes up in my conversations. How do you counsel on that kind of perspective?
Yeah, I don't know why so many women in LA look like they're 25. A lot of women, I live in Boston, and a lot of women look the same way around here. And, maybe they're getting treatments, like Botox and fillers or plastic surgery. I don't know. I can't speak for all of them. Um, a lot of women I find, in order to keep their bodies thinner, you know, very much undereat. They just don't eat enough. So they're thin, but are they really healthy
Correct.
inside?
And that's
Right?
the line is healthy.
Yeah,
You may look a certain way, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy.
right.
And I think that any question or any time that we find ourselves having those kinds of thoughts about, other people is, how do we feel? How do I feel? And, what's healthy for me? Do I feel healthy? Am I healthy?
Right.
I think that,
Right. And it's hard when you're living in, a world that values youth, that values no wrinkles, no wrinkles at all. Um, and, body has to be, ripped. And that is really tough because you think you should look like that too. I mean, we're social animals. Let's face it. We look around us and we think, oh, should we
yes,
do that too? And like you said, no, that's not right for everybody, and it may not be healthy for anybody. But
yeah,
again, I can't say.
yes.
But
I think at the end of it, most of this has to do with how do we really take care of our mental health, right? I think
Mhm,
encourage body confidence and how we encourage good relationships with nutrition, with food.
mhm,
Um,
right.
I find myself doing a lot more mental health coaching, a lot of mental health counseling, because I think a lot of the body dysmorphia that we
Mhm.
see and hear, and help treat, is really just rooted in so much of that, mental health, and especially for midlife women who are dealing with so much already. you know
Yes, they are really dealing with a lot. A lot is going on at midlife.
oh,
Lots. And women are they're caregivers of their own children or spouse or elderly parents or other people in their lives that need them, like a child with
yeah,
special needs.
correct.
This is and then they have their own needs on top of that,
Yes,
and it's really quite the storm, a perfect storm. And
absolutely.
of course, the quick fix is always very attractive, because what can I do that can help me fix this now, so I don't have to think about it because I have all these other things going on. And the quick fix never lasts, sadly. So that's why I think, that's so attractive. What they actually have seen, what research has shown is that disordered eating has like another spike, right around the 45,
I,
50, 55-year-old, right? Population. Like you may that, so that may be a new case of disordered eating that you've never really had before, or it could be that you had disordered eating as a teen or in your 20s that you had thought you had overcome, and you were really managing, and then again your body changes
correct.
again, and it may
Right.
resurface. Those feelings may resurface. So um, that's why we really do want women to get help if
Yes.
they need it. Like you said, take a very holistic approach. I mean, when I was counseling patients, I used to have people come to me and talk to me about their eating, and absolutely break down in tears. Like sometimes they would break down in tears, and I'm like, okay, but like what's going on? Thank God my mother was a therapist, so I had a little bit
Yes.
of compassion in me. And they would tell me like, oh, this, and I said, because dietitians aren't as threatening for some people to go to as maybe a mental health professional is, but you find out, well, it's not really your eating, it's your stress and your lifestyle. And thank goodness I worked on the same floor as the mental health professionals, and we
Ah,
have like one receptionist desk. And I would say, I think you need to go see somebody about the underlying stuff. It's going to be hard to try to fix your
yes.
diet when you can't manage some of the day-to-day stuff
Ah,
yet.
ah,
Yeah. So it's really, eating is not just
yes.
eating, exercising is not just
Correct.
exercising. There's so much
So,
else going on.
so
Yeah.
multifactorial.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I encourage my own patients to continue having conversations,
Hmm.
to try to really normalize a lot of what they're going through, because, we do tend to, maybe isolate a lot of the mental health issues, and not,
Hmm.
again, not really open it up a little bit more and look at things more holistically.
Yeah.
Um, so, I could spend all day talking to you, and I know it's out there.
Me too.
I know, I hope that I'll have another opportunity to speak with you, and also maybe have a conversation with
Yes.
Hillary. Yes,
Hmm.
so as we kind of, wrap this up for the evening, if you had to give like your three main, you know, mantras for midlife women in nutrition, what would they be? And, how do we maintain sustainability?
I think the first one would be, you know, don't go it alone. Get help
Okay.
from a credible, registered dietitian, and of course from a knowledgeable, OBGYN like yourself. Look around and get help look for the helpers, as we say, and make sure they're credible.
Yes,
Stick to the basics. Number two would be stick to the basics. They will never fail you.
love that.
Making sure you get enough protein, fiber, sleep. I always feel weird telling menopausal women to get sleep because I know how difficult it is. I don't think I've slept in the lab since I had kids, since I started having kids. So I always feel a little bit sheepish, but try to do that, and resist the fads. And third, talk about it. Talk to people. Talk to your peers. Don't suffer in silence.
Correct.
Do not suffer on any count. What we're going through is difficult,
Correct.
and it's more difficult for some women than others, and that's okay. There's a spectrum, right, that you go through in the perimenopause transition, but keep talking.
Correct. I couldn't agree with you more. It's support, it's the right information,
Mhm.
sticking to the basics, because we can always recenter ourselves with the basics, the foundation. And you're
Yes.
correct. correct about just keeping the conversations open. It's so important to remind women to normalize the conversations, normalize everything that happens to, potentially to us during midlife, especially through that menopausal transition. But those are so right on target. And I couldn't agree with you more. I so appreciate your time. And again, I know that this is a little bit later for you on the East Coast. And I hope to have you have another conversation with me in the future. I am really looking forward to that Menopause Diet Plan book that you and Hillary have authored. I believe we could all get it on Amazon, correct?
Yes, yes, it's on Amazon. Yes, so
Yes.
easy. And other online booksellers too. You
Okay,
don't want to
good.
use Amazon.
Yes. Again, I really appreciate your time and all the insights. And thank you. And I hope that we can do this again.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'd love to do it again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, and have a nice dinner.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, I appreciate everyone who joined in on my first live in Instagram interview. And it was a pleasure to have Liz Ward from the Menopause Diet Plan. She and her partner, Hillary Wright, have also co-authored a book called The Menopause Diet Plan. And again, this was a first talk and opportunity to open the conversation about how we take care of each other in midlife. And one of those most important aspects is nutrition. And so again, thank you to Liz who shared some insights. And just to end this live video, just as a reminder to all my midlife women out there that surround yourself with a strong community, get the help that you need if you are struggling. And there is very good research, scientific based information to guide you. And we hope that your journey is well supported. Take care. Have a good night.